Welcome to the All-Star Networking Podcast. It's the show where you hear from a new expert each week on how to build an all-star network, increase business sales, grow careers, find a job, or enrich your life. Let's get it started. From the Midtown Global Market in Minneapolis, here's your host, Kathy Paper.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Kathy Paper, the All-Star Networking Show. Our guest today is Bruce Bildsten. And Bruce and I go way back, but it's so good to reconnect with you. So I would love you to let the listeners know what you're doing right now, and then we'll dive back to how our paths have interwoven through the years. We'll chat a little about networking, relationships, all that, and hear some of the good sounds of the Midtown Global Market.
Okay, well, again, Bruce Bildsten, and I'm a creative director. Right now, my title is Executive Creative Director at Best Buy. So I head up all the creative at Best Buy. And at Best Buy, we do it unusually in that I've worked with a team there to build an in-house agency. So we do all the brand advertising, social media, design for Best Buy. And then we use agencies for some of our digital needs. But generally, we do it all there. So I hired some really talented people from the best agencies. And that's where I am. I've been there about 5.5 years, and it's a great company, a great place to be.
Excellent. Well, you know that I worked at Best Buy as well.
Okay.
So
clearly Geek Squad.
Not Geek Squad. No, I came in and it was I have to go by how old my kids are because I had 2 kids while I worked there. But I was working with the advertising department when they were Yellow Tag Productions they had, and I was in the merchandising department.
Okay.
And working with them and in the HR and executive coaching, and they moved from Eden Prairie and like multiple locations into the big location that they're at right now with the fitness center. Do they still have the fitness center?
Yes.
Okay. And the Caribou?
Yes. Yeah. A couple.
Okay.
It's the big spaceship at 35W and
it is
494.
It is. Awesome. So we worked on bestbuy.com when that was launching.
Right.
And all of that. But anyway, I want to talk about you and I and relationship building and networking. And you started this conversation by saying, I don't network.
That's true.
And
not consciously. Not deliberately.
There it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It just happens.
It just happens.
Yeah.
So how does building relationships just happen for you who's had an amazing career or has an amazing career? And
well, professionally, I've had a chance of working with some of the best people in the advertising business. I spent 25 years of my career at Fallon, where we met. I was there almost from the start. And I like to say to people, it was like being invited to join the Beatles because it was really an amazingly creative place for decades.
Excellent. And I'm just going to pause for a second because that was just a tour going by. So if people don't know that are listening, you can come, high schools, colleges, grade schools can come and take a tour of the market, have lunch, do all of that. So all the kids that are walking by, they can all, I'm guessing high school, but you never know.
Yep, high school.
High school? Hard to tell high school, college, but everybody walking by. So that was what that flock of children coming through. I love the joining the Beatles.
Yes.
Because when we met at Fallon, I remember being in awe of the creatives of like, this is a pocket of smart, talented people. I knew I wanted to get into advertising. I didn't know how it worked. How did you first land that first job? Or was that your first job?
Well, my first job was I was at an agency with a designer named Joe Duffy. And he was part of an agency called DKO, and I was a writer there. I was actually Joe's creative partner on a lot of work. And Joe is actually more of a graphic designer than an advertising person. So Pat Fallon asked him to create a design arm of Fallon. So it was just Joe and I and a card table and a couple of chairs that started Duffy Design. Oh. And even though I'm a writer and not a designer, I was there and because conceptually we worked really well together. And so he hired some other amazing designers like Charles Spencer Anderson, Dan Olson, et cetera, that first year. And then I came over to Fallon, became a writer, where I worked on, brands like Porsche, for example. That was one of my passions.
I was going to say.
Early on. I always worked on cars, BMW, and then Cadillac at the end. So, yeah.
Can we do a wiki on you and see your reel of all your work?
Because I've never created a website, so okay. I should. But it's fun because my old Porsche ads, which I wrote in the early 90s, pop up on social media several times a week, just because the Porsche people are fanatical about the work we did, and what we wrote then still applies.
Yes.
So.
Still applies, yeah, totally to the brand.
To the brand and the ethos and the whole thing.
There was the room that had all the prints of the ads.
Yes.
And people would try to go in there and steal them because
right.
they wanted to take them home into their basement or their apartment or whatever. And Barb Zutz, rest her soul, guarded the print room. And I just remember that was one of my jobs you have to have inventory of the Porsche work and it can't get stolen. So
it's very funny you say that because as the writer, I kept 5 copies of every Porsche ad I wrote and I've stored them in metal flat files in my basement ever since. And there's such a following for them that I'm in the process of scanning them. And I'm selling them, and I'm going to use the money to go to relief in the Ukraine.
Oh.
So I figured rather than those things sitting in my file, all these Porsche fanatics will pay handsome money for these things. And they're, the original reprints. And I wrote over 100 of them. So there's quite a few of them.
Wait, you wrote over 100 ads?
Yeah, because we would write all the ads for the dealers. So we would write. I churned out so many ads in those days. It was crazy. Yeah.
Okay, so can we get that link? Have you scanned all those?
I haven't yet. No, I'm still working on it.
Okay. When that project comes live, will you come back on and we can tell
I will tell you where.
That?
Yeah, because Ukraine needs some help right now.
Yes.
So that's something I believe in. So
that's awesome. When you said not intentional making connections, but they just kind of happen throughout your career. How do you keep in touch with people that are currently in your network once you've established it?
I think honestly, I use a lot of text. It just seems like the most intimate, quick way to get someone's attention, so I keep in touch with people that way. I really don't care for LinkedIn. I try not to look at it about every 3 months. I know professionally that's not wise, but I don't really enjoy it. It's a little too corporate and braggy for me.
Yep. No.
And then
it's hard to LinkedIn to me is really hard to be authentic.
Yeah, it's very it just doesn't seem that. I honestly think a lot of creative people actually are on Instagram. I'm a very visual person, so I actually keep in touch with people with that, and we'll use messaging if I don't have someone's address and find them that way, and some email. But I'm still involved in some of the creative clubs like the One Club and judge shows in that way, so that keeps me in touch. And honestly, at this point in my career, a lot of my contemporaries are retired. So, I go visit them where they retired.
Tell me about the BMW film series that I think was one of your brainchilds and that you worked on. Am I wrong about that?
Yes, no, I was. It was one of the proudest things I did. I was the creative director on BMW North America. And in the early 2000s, BMW was, ironically, it applies today, but they felt like television advertising wasn't necessarily the best way to reach their customers. Their customers were far too busy to sit down and watch much television other than maybe some sports and news. And ironically, in the early 2000s, they were using the web already to research their purchases. And at the same time, we felt like TV commercials in 30 seconds could not demonstrate what a BMW could do. In fact, the best examples were in films. Like there was a very classic film directed by John Frankenheimer called Ronin that had this amazing chase scene through Paris, one of the greatest chase scenes ever. And to us, that was inspiration. So a team, Joe Swede and David Carter, who I was working with, originally hatched the idea, and then we worked together to bring it to life. And it was huge. But the idea was a series of short online films that would be streamed over the internet. This was before YouTube.
Yeah.
But they starred Clive Owen as this very quiet but powerful driver for hire. And they were individual stories. They were executive produced by David Fincher, and then the second season by Tony Scott and Ridley Scott. And Clive played this driver, and each story was directed by a different director, including John Frankenheimer, Ang Lee, Guy Ritchie, Tony Scott, Alejandro. I could go on and on. So many Oscar winners. Mm-hmm. And then they had stars like Madonna, James Brown, Gary Oldman, on and on. So they each was a 7-minute to 9-minute short action film produced to really high standards with these great stars and directors featuring a BMW. So that was one of my proudest moments. Yeah. So I got to meet some amazing directors, amazing talent and actors. And then we brought Clive back in 2016 and did a 15th anniversary film with Dakota Fanning and John Bernthal.
Nice.
So, yeah.
That's what I thought you had done the anniversary, but that's why I remember I went, I think I had already left Fallon, and that was probably when I was at Best Buy. And I remember hearing about that idea and being like, that's cool. That's really cool to do a film and cut through. And, again, your work is unbelievable. So,
yeah.
Precision. And I'm not just huffing. I'm like, I genuinely believe. You did some pro bono work?
Oh yeah, I did a lot of pro bono.
Because that was what was such a core piece to the ethos of the company was let's do pro bono work as well as creatives want to do good work.
Yeah, Children's Defense Fund is a good example. I was really proud of the work we did for PBS. Won 2 Emmys for that work.
Wow.
So that was fun. You're talking about networking. Interestingly, I tend to use my network now more for helping others find jobs, the next generation. So, if somebody is looking in advertising, for example, they'll come to me, my own kids, and their friends, but also others because, I'm now, the older generation. And I know a lot of people, and that's how I use my network more often, is to help connect them with the right people. And everyone is looking for great people too, so it's a two-way street.
Right. Yeah. And how do you? So again, I have 3 kids, and you have 2.
I have 2,
right?
Yeah.
I feel like on Instagram, I just saw you were on a trip somewhere with them.
Yes, Mexico.
Yeah. Your Instagram you should follow his Instagram. It's really good. Of course, he's got a designer's eye. And
I'm not a designer.
You're not
I'm
a designer.
A writer.
I know you're a writer, but I'm saying you have a designer's eye. You have a writer's pen and a designer's eye.
Worked with a lot of designers.
Yeah. How do you like people to connect with you? Or what makes somebody a good young person approaching you? Because I still remember when I wanted to get in advertising and I approached somebody, I probably made every mistake under the sun of, do you have a job? Here's my resume. Like I was kind of...
You were aggressive. Let me guess. Ambitious. I'm sorry. Ambitious.
Okay.
No.
I was excited.
Yeah.
I was the only intern at Fallon that ever got hired.
Yeah.
The first, actually not only. I think I paved the way. I was the first intern that got hired.
Yeah.
Because they were so good that they thought if you wanted to be an intern, you didn't have the...
Right.
There was sort of
you made things happen, Kathy.
I will own my aggressiveness now.
You didn't wait for them to come to you, which is smart. How do I like people to...
It didn't go over so well.
Approach me is I honestly like it when it's through somebody I know. I mean, that helps a little bit. I try to speak at different schools and at different conferences. So, I'm open if I do that to talk to people afterwards and have them reach out to me through, social media. LinkedIn is probably the best place to find you.
And do the people that come to you, are they prepared?
Sometimes very prepared. Sometimes they don't know what they want to do, and I can help with that. I've been involved with organizations that help, high school students. Like Brand Lab is a great local organization that helps kids from disinvested communities who wouldn't even be aware of all the opportunities in advertising and marketing. And it's the whole idea of it is to expose them to other professionals. So I've been involved in that. And, certainly when I work with those students, I like them to reach out to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's just all about.
I also have been involved with the Best Buy has something called the Teen Tech Centers. And again, it's kids in communities without enough investment who don't have access to tech.
Yep.
They don't have access to connections. They don't have access to the hardware. And so the Teen Tech Centers, there's almost 100 of them across the country. They tend to be in community centers, like the Hope Community Center in North Minneapolis is one good example. There's a few of them here in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, there's one right in inner city tennis.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're fantastic. It's a place a kid can come after school and have access to the best technology, laptops, drones, cameras, video cameras, recording equipment. We teach all of those skills, and we have mentors that can teach them how to work a board and how to produce music or how to produce a podcast, how to make a film, how to make photography. So that's it's just an amazing organization. I'm so glad Best Buy really concentrates so much of their corporate giving on that, because it's such a need and it's so connected to what they do, and they recognize it can make a huge difference in kids' lives. So I try to get involved with those.
That's awesome. Do you do any ads for that we can share with?
We've done,
with the listeners?
We've actually done some beautiful social kind of videos and films that have won some awards. They're generally profiling the kids, but we've done a few rounds of those.
Good.
I'll share those with you.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. Only because one of the things too, with at least when I think about the internet, is people that are looking for something can find it on Instagram.
Yeah.
So no matter where you're at,
Right.
if you're fortunate enough to have a phone or to get somewhere, you look at it and then you can find something new. You may jump onto it. So
yeah. And we've run some of them, as television commercials as well, just because it's a really important part of what Best Buy is trying to do in the community.
Great. Let's talk for a second, too, because I remember you and I meeting. Fallon was one of the first organizations to have a workout facility on site.
Yeah,
And you were a big cyclist.
I was.
And are you still doing any cycling?
I still try to cycle when
Nice.
I can. Yeah.
Are you road, electric, the whole deal? Or like
Both. I like road biking. I like mountain biking, and fat biking in the winter even better. So, yeah, that's my thing. I tend to put mine away and ride a regular mountain bike in the summer.
All right. Well, I just have a friend. He should come be a guest on this. So he moved to town, and he showing me around his house, and he has bikes down in his basement.
Yeah.
And I said, well, who are you riding with? Or have you found people to ride with? And I know there are, lots of groups and organizations to connect with. So I dialed him into a couple of men's groups to ride
I'm a little more solitary with most of them. I ride with a few friends.
Yeah. Set group.
Yeah.
So thinking about relationships, you're involved in so many things. When has your network been helpful to you? Like you said, helping the younger people network.
Actually, at this point, it's helpful to me for recruiting. That's how I use it the most.
Okay.
Finding the best people. Again, I've hired really great people from agencies, top talent, and I want to keep expanding that network. I also want a more diverse network. So to me, expanding, especially to find younger talent, more diverse talent that I may not be aware of. That's how I use it primarily.
Great. All right. So this is kind of more of a craftsmanship question.
Okay.
Because I found, again, I was the account executive at Fallon. I wasn't the writer or the creative director. But through the years, I've realized how much the line from Harvey Mackay is, your lives are changed by the books you read and the people you meet.
Yep.
And Harvey was how I got my job at Fallon because he and Pat were friends.
Yes.
And I moved back to town and wanted to get into advertising, and Pat connected me with Harvey. Anyway, what are you reading? What do you like to read?
I'm not. The short answer is I'm not reading enough. I am not reading enough right now. Right now, I'm reading a book on fly fishing, and I'm not a very good fly fisherman, but I love the beauty of that sport, and so I'm reading a book by a local author named David Coggins. That's gorgeous about fly fishing. So, I don't read business books at all.
Yep.
People will give me business books, and I go, thank you very much, and then I secretly give them to someone else. I think I'm always busy, Kathy, and I work hard and, tend to watch a lot. I think my leisure time is more taken up by watching films with my wife than it is reading. And she's a voracious reader, so
Nice.
I'm incredibly guilty. But, I tend to I'm ready to put my feet up at 9:00 at night, so it doesn't leave a lot of time for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
The films. Okay, so with the films then, because I realized that since the pandemic, my film watching and then following Oscars or understanding movies has changed, yet my appreciation of it. What do you, did you watch the award-winning movie?
Everything. Yes,
Yeah.
I did. Actually, my favorite film this year was All Quiet on the Western Front. I think it was a brilliant, difficult to watch anti-war film.
Yeah.
A German film about World War I, but it was really powerful.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Intense.
Have you seen it?
I watched the preview actually and had exactly that reaction of like, I'm not ready in the moment to, watch this. Because when I watch a movie, I feel like I soak it all in and I'm like, I got to come back to this. So I will watch it.
What's interesting, I think, in terms of the film industry is the streaming services have been very good to international film. You always used to hear, well, American films, how much are they going to gross globally? So it was always about pushing American films internationally. But now the streaming services, in order to strengthen their markets, especially in Europe, they're commissioning more films. So there's been some brilliant films out of France, out of Germany, out of even Norway. And you're starting to see more of those because they realize that, at a certain point, an audience doesn't want to watch everything in English, and they want to see films that are about their experiences. So,
when you mentioned the other things, do you write in ads in any other languages?
do I?
Yeah, do you, or do you have a team that does that?
Well,
or?
for Best Buy, we are a domestic only company, so pretty much our work is done in English and Spanish. Is really the two primary languages that we produce work in. So,
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking. I mean, it's just so interesting now to think back of because now I get it. When I was the assistant account executive, I didn't really know cars, and then when I worked on that account, I was like, oh, now I understand. People love their cars. This is a love affair with the car, with all the nuances, and then the ads were just, it made everybody want to buy one.
Well, I always enjoyed working on brands that had some passion and history behind them, and so that's why I loved working on, Porsche and BMW so much. But other brands like Nikon cameras, there's just people love them, and there's history behind them, and that photo was taken with an icon. That one was. So I always kind of gravitated toward brands that had that. And right now that I'm at Best Buy, actually the brands are also very interesting. They're the top electronic brands are my clients as much as Best Buy is, because they invest in our marketing. So I'm, selling Samsung products and Sony and all these other brands, Sonos, etc.
Are you doing? When I was in Best Buy recently, there's a lot in the healthcare kind of home space.
That's a huge area of growth for us. If you think about, the connected home with all the Google and Amazon appliances, and everything from your Ring doorbell to your Google Home, and what you can do with that's a huge part of our business, because everything is so connected. And then health is, if you think about all the equipment and how much more electronic it is in terms of technology and exercise equipment, watches, of course the Apple Watch, and then that actually leads to even more advanced health, like we've been investing in companies that help you monitor aging parents who are trying to live at home. You can keep track of did they take their medication today, and you can see all that through an app, things like that. Yeah. Hearing aids, are now available over the counter, and all these amazing audio companies like Bose and Samsung that have the technology are entering areas of health as well.
Okay, well, when you need a product tester, I love to product test.
Okay.
And I think Best Buy did figure out how to get in the home.
Yes.
And there's a lot that can be done to be helpful or to tell the story of how you do it, but it's got to be simple.
Yep.
That's the piece of who's the operator. At least if I were giving you my focus group on aging parents, if they're figuring it out, it's unbelievable to me how complicated somebody makes it for anybody over 75.
Ease of use is so important.
The print size alone, and the number of steps and all of that. So
absolutely.
Anyway.
I live in South Minneapolis, so I love it here, and
I just think about, and Best Buy, one of the things I loved when I worked there was when they moved and opened the new buildings, and they made the lunchroom that was Sandy's place, right? Which Sandy was Dick Schultz's wife, who died of cancer. I don't know how many years ago, before I started working there. But there was something about in that lunchroom space where you got community, and here at the market, sometimes when I look over and see people eating lunch, I get the sense of community, but I'd love to see how do we get more people coming here. Maybe it's a one another or something, because Sandy's place, even as much as it feels vibrant, it's the IT people sit with the IT people, and the ad people sit with the ad people, or sometimes they go away, for lunch or whatever. But how could we get people to mix up a little bit more?
I agree. I like the idea of going out for lunch, and I've rarely made time for it in my career. I've always felt like, I've got a long day anyways. I'm going to eat something at my desk and get through it. But when I do it, I appreciate it. And now, like a lot of companies, Best Buy is hybrid. Generally, we're in the office. So I make the point of trying to get out for lunch a lot, especially on Fridays with my wife. And again, we live in South Minneapolis, so try to keep it pretty local. But we need to get over here a little more often, for sure.
Well, I'll arrange, because I've always said to Matt, we're going to have all the guests come meet each other, and I'll do it on a Friday, so you can come. Not a Friday in the summer.
Okay.
But
you know about that.
I do know about that. I know about that. Yeah. But we'll get you in here on a Friday too.
Good.
Well, it is so awesome to reconnect.
All right.
I'm not going to look on LinkedIn.
Don't, because I just don't pay any attention to it.
But I may send a few people to you to help with some of your outreach and hiring, because Best Buy is a great place to work. And then I just thanks. It's so good to reconnect.
So good. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the All-Star Networking Podcast with Kathy Paper. To learn more about strategic networking and making impactful connections, visit rockpaperstar.com. Please join us in supporting the Midtown Global Market as a vital community resource that supports small business, cultural diversity, and free or low-cost programming. Reach us at friendsofglobalmarket.org.